This is John from John's record collection, box number 16, Will Jima to Gershon Kingsley. Hey, we're looking at box number 16. So we're in the letter J and letter K right now. And what do we have here? Will Jima, the UFO message. So this guy, Will Jima, he was a pretty interesting guy, and that's putting it mildly. He was very much into conspiracy theory and UFOs and prophecy, and he put out his own records, his own spoken word records. This one's called the UFO Message. I like UFO spoken word records in general, but this guy takes the cake. I'm also looking for another record he has called Revelation 666. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of that one. That one has a copy of like a leopard with two heads on the front cover. So if you ever see a copy of that record and have a copy you want to sell or trade, please let me know. Will Jima, the UFO Message. If you have a copy of Revelation 666, please do let me know about it. And let's see. So I think that's my only Will Jima record. This is J.K. and Company. It is Suddenly One Summer. Very, very nice psychedelic record. I think done by a bunch of teenagers on White Whale Records. So it was the same record label that had success with the Turtles. This wasn't as successful in terms of chart success, but it's a great, great pop psych record. Very floaty and ethereal, and done with some really good musicianship, even though the kids playing the music are very young. And J.K. and Company. Jodo Guts. This is a very nice hard rock guitar record. Very nice record. There's a song on here that I think sounds a little bit like Led Zeppelin's Heartbreaker, and I think it may have even come out before the Led Zeppelin song. So maybe Led Zeppelin swiped a few riffs or something. I don't know, but Jodo Guts, really, it's a hard rock LP with guts. And then here, Joe Speaks. That's Peter Boyle. You might remember Peter Boyle as one of the cab drivers in the movie Taxi Driver. He was also Raymond's father in Everybody Loves Raymond. He was the Frankenstein's monster in Young Frankenstein, or Frankenstein, as the case may be. This is called Joe Speaks. So it's not really a conventional soundtrack album. It's kind of marketed like a soundtrack album. So Joe was a movie where Peter Boyle played this really like reactionary guy who was kind of George Wallace voter and had very, kind of right-wing views and hated hippies and things like that. And so most of this is basically dialogue from the movie, and it's amazing, like dialogue from that time capsule. It's kind of like Archie Bunker a few years before All in the Family came out, except possibly even a little more extreme. But it's a really crazy spoken word record. And next we have here one of these crazy Christian. So it's I just file it J for Joey. Joey is the ventriloquist dummy. It's called Here's Joey. And I think a guy found a bunch of these, a record dealer I would cross paths with found a bunch of these, sealed, and, started selling them off one by one back in the day. So I got one. I don't know how rare this is, or maybe it got really common. I don't know, but it's one of those really wacky Christian ventriloquist records, and there's a whole bunch of skits on this, and the ventriloquist dummy character's pretty. He's got a screw loose. And John Bunyan's Progressive Pilgrims. So this is one of my favorite. So it's, I don't think it's a little underrated in my opinion. John Bunyan's Progressive Pilgrims. It is a psychsploitation or exploito psychedelic record. It was done on the budget label Allshire, and it just has really good fuzz guitar, psychedelic instrumentals. There's a really good rendition of Saber Dance Saber Dance, the classical music composition. Saber Dance was popular at the time because there was a guy named, I think, Dave Edmunds, who did his own psychedelic instrumental version of it that got on the charts. And so they're doing it on this record, and they do it with like this fuzzy guitar that's like sent through these phasing and really interesting electronic effects on the guitar, and just really good, crunchy, fuzzy, hard rocking guitar instrumentals. Yeah, very acid fried stuff. And what's this? Claude Johnner, Good Morning Vietnam. So this is an audio collage record that includes some sounds from Vietnam during the Vietnam War. It's, I guess, part of an anti-war art project, and it was on the Folkways record label, so I like to get the weird stuff on that label. And here, what we got? Yes. So this is kind of a Johnny Spot's Private Ear. So this is mostly music that was made for ad agencies and radio stations, and it's really interesting. So it's supposed to be like this fake detective called Johnny Spot's Private Ear, and so a lot of it is like the spy TV shows and spy movies of the time. A lot of that's, that distinctive soundtrack sound from spy movies. And let's see, this is a rare one. This is John's Children, a very rare record. This one was called, this record was called Orgasm, and for that reason it did not sell very well. But John's Children, Mark Bolan of T-Rex, was associated with the group, although he was not in the group at the time this record was made. And it is just a very rare record because it did not sell very well in its own time. And George Johnson, Harlem of My Childhood, Studies in Soul, George T. Johnson. So this is a black poetry record. And Lamont Johnson, this is pretty good, like funk, jazz, soul with a lot of cowbell. So if you like the cowbell, this Lamont Johnson guy, Lamont Johnson, he is your man. So if you're all, give me more cowbell, this is a good record for it. And The Gift of Randy Johnson. So he's another, acid folk solo guy. So he's a solo guy. He mainly has a guitar and he's a songwriter, but because it's psychedelic, it's the lyrics are weirder and they put more effects on it. So it's acid folk. And this is a 90s alternative guy, Freddie Johnston, Can You Fly? And he had a hit with a song called Bad Reputation. This one is not on that record, but I think this one had really good reviews back in the day. I don't know how well it sold, but The Jokers Guitar Boogie. So the Jokers are a really good European guitar instrumental group. If you ever see anything they have, definitely do check them out. The Jokers Guitar Boogie. And I think there's another Jokers record, Spider 8, that I do want to track down. I don't think I've tracked it down. André Jolivet. So, Concerto for Ondes Martineau and Orchestra. So this is I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. Ondes Martineau is a pioneering electronic keyboard. You could almost manipulate it to make these sounds like a theremin. So André Jolivet. So this is kind of it's a classical record, but it's an unusual classical record because of the unique nature of the instrument that is on it. And here's another psychedelic era male-female duo that I like, John and Robin. John spells his name Jon, just like me, so he spells it the right way. John and Robin, Elastic. It's the John and Robin Elastic event, and I love how they have these ridiculous paisley tops, both of them, and he has these blindingly white pants with these blindingly white shoes, and she's got these blindingly white boots that she's kind of sitting on, and then some really good very soulful, but trying to soulful pop, soulful, kind of a blue-eyed soul sound with some psych pop tinges to it. Dr. John, I like that song for obvious reasons. It's like, Dr. John, I'm your medicine man, so kind of like to play that around my wife, for sexy time song. It's just, okay. Anywho, the John and Robin Elastic event, really cool people. And then it's Jonathan and Charles. This is a kind of a folk rockish Christian record that I don't think it's. It's not an easy record to find, but it's not a super rare or expensive record to find. But it's supposed to. It's good. And here's Jonathan and Lee. So this is folk rock. Another one of those folk rock 1960s duos I like. There were a whole bunch of these male-female duos because they were all trying to cash in, and they were hoping that they would get the next Sonny and Cher. I think most of these duos are better than Sonny and Cher. Unfortunately, they did not. Quality did not rise to the top, and they didn't get the recognition that they deserved. But Jonathan and Lee, they're a very nice bunch of young kids who sing, and I guess they were in love at one point, or were they married? Were they in love? Who knows? Their voices blend so nicely, and unfortunately, it would be ridiculously expensive if I had an original copy of this. But this is Del Jones' Positive Vibes. It is a soul psychedelic record. Very hard to find in its original incarnation. This is a reissue I bought many moons ago. And then, let's see. Yes. Harley and Maurice Jones, Virtuoso Accordionists. So this is an all accordion record, and let's see, there's a Beatles song on here. What Beatles song is it? It is... So they do I Want to Hold Your Hand. Oh, and they do Please Please Me. So there are two Beatles songs that are all accordion on this record. I mean, I love it. If you don't like it, well, why are you watching? No, they do three. I Want to Hold Your Hand, Day Tripper, and Please Please Me. They also do Crocodile Rock. So they do the Elton John song. And they do Flight of the Bumblebee Boogie. So they play Rimsky-Korsakov's Flight of the Bumblebee on accordions, which not easy to do. No, you should only do that if you're in the hands of trained professionals. Anyway, virtuoso accordionists, Hurley and Maurice Jones. That's a record from New Zealand. And Paul Jones. I think Paul Jones was in Man for Man. He was also in a movie called Privilege that came out in the mid-'60s that I think would... I need to see that movie, but I think it's about like a rock star who suddenly comes to think he's God or the leader of a religious movement. But anyway, Paul Jones was in that. Paul Jones was in Man for Man. And this is his solo record. And... I don't know, why is this a Japanese record? So this is Steve Jordan and the Jordan Brothers. I have no idea why it's Japanese, but it's like a Latin pop psych record. And La Bamba by Steve Jordan and the Jordan Brothers. Cool cover, but I have no idea why it's Japanese. It was just, the record was cool and it had songs I wanted on it, but who knows why it's Japanese? Josefus. So this is another one of those mainstream psych bands. These guys are kind of hard acid fried blues rock and almost kind of like they're like, I don't know if they went to Vietnam, but they almost sound like a bunch of guys who just came back from Vietnam and kind of have this cynical burnout and want to play hippie biker blues rock all the time. That's what these guys sound like. They're from Texas. So this is another Texas band, but it's on mainstream records instead of international artists' records. But these guys should be considered a cult Texas psychedelic band too, Josefus. So really cool. I got this from a guy that I bought a lot of records from in my hometown area of Pennsylvania. So he somehow found this. I have no idea how he found it. He gave me a good deal on it, but he found it. So if you know like a guy who just gets a lot of records, send him your want list, because you never know what that guy or that girl or gal or woman is going to turn up. And this is very similarly named, also kind of bluesy psych rock, Joseph, Stoned Age Man, killer cover. This was on Scepter, so that's the label with Dionne Warwick and the Shirelles on it, but they also dabbled into psychedelic music because everybody was doing a little bit of that, but the market got a little flooded, and so there's a lot of rare records in that genre. And now this is really cool. This is, it's a Christian rock record, it's a psychedelic record, it is what I like to call more fuzz tone for Jesus record. Like it's like they believed that their ability to convert people for Jesus required applying as much fuzz tone as possible, and I love them for it. Joshua, God spoke and said, "Lead my people," and it's like carved out of hard rock. It's like carved out of pure stone on the front cover. Don't be like, if you're secular, don't oppose this record because you think it has too much religious content. This rocks hard. This rocks hard. Really, really sharp guitar on this one. Like really hard electric guitar. And this is I think this is a combination of two albums by a UK folk psych group called Joshua Fox. This was U.S. press on Tetragrammaton Records. I'm going to have to revisit this. So many records, not enough time. But one of my favorites. Oh my God! Wow! Look at the front cover. Josie and the Pussycats. I believe Diane Ladd, who later became like one of the Charlie's Angels. Diane Ladd is either on the cover or she sings on this. I forget which. Josie and the Pussycats. So this is the official record that got associated with the Josie and the Pussycats cartoon show, and the tunes are actually really good. So some of these cartoon bands like Josie and the Pussycats or the Archies, they actually had good music on their records. And anyway, let me look at that. Wow. Okay, so Josie and the Pussycats. And okay, is this the meaning of the James Joyce Society? A reading of Finnegan's Wake. So Finnegan's Wake is just James Joyce just writing a bunch of word salad. It's supposedly quite good, but I've not read it. Very few people have, but James Joyce. So if you want a recitation of it and like don't actually like read the book for college, you know, and just get the Cliff Notes version, I guess you could get a record like this. J.P. Rags, Scruffity. This is a kind of a country, you know, idiosyncratic country rock record. And the Judge's Nephews. So this is another one of those Latin groups that were kind of trying to jump on the pop psych bandwagon. The Judge's Nephews. You know, pretty cool looking dudes, I think. But yeah, it's like a little bit of Latin, a little bit of pop, a little bit of psych, a little bit of everything. And okay, this is this is a band called Juicy Groove, and it has a bunch of it's a picture disc, and it has a bunch of people from Captain Beefheart, Steppenwolf, and the Seeds. So a lot of, you know, like a lot of trashy psych bands that I just love, and they're all like mixed together in one super group. Except it's not like one of those boring 1970s super group. It's like a bunch of, I don't know, like biker hippie rock super group. Like the only one that ever existed. So Juicy Groove, and it has a picture disc, and actually take out the picture disc, take it out. See, woo! Isn't this amazing? Juicy Groove, Juicy Groove. Look at that. There's a dude on the back that looks like Jesus. Very, very. These guys are so high, you need to like scrape them off the ceiling with a garden rake. Yeah, they're very high. Ron Julian and the Sanctuary. This is from 1969. Kind of a jazz pop psych record. Ron Julian and the Sanctuary. There's some covers on it, but there's also some original songs on it you won't hear anywhere else. Scarborough Fair is on it, and there's a cover of Eleanor Rigby. So, very hard record to find these days, I'm told. So, Ron Julian and the Sanctuary. I'm trying to remember if he was he like a seminary student? I don't know, maybe that's why they called him the Sanctuary. I'll have to look up his story. And then this is Julian's Treatment, a time before this. This is kind of a UK prog into psych record. This is one of those that actually got sold in the United States, which is why I have it. But yeah, I don't have as much UK prog and psych in the collection because, you know, I'm in America. And, you know, I guess I went hunted where the ducks were. But I do have some UK prog, you know, and so, you know, I like a little bit of that. Need variety. But oh my god. So this is a U.S. press of a very rare UK group. The cover is amazing. it's got this like bugged out frog on it, and it's got lizards, and it's got this creature with gigantic nostrils, and it's called July. July was the name of the group. So it is the self-titled album by July. It is like one of my favorite Psych records. It is the sensibility is very, very similar to early Pink Floyd when Sid Barrett was still in the group, like when they were really weird in that way. July is like that, but unlike Pink Floyd, they are more likely to stay. They're more likely to stay disciplined and within the confines of a 3-minute pop song. So, but they're almost just as weird as early Pink Floyd, and it is just amazing psychedelic stuff. Almost every song on this record has some weird kind of sound effect or some different kind of instrument playing on it, or just it's constantly surprising you with new sounds, even though it has a constant like psychedelic feel to it throughout. The songs are well differentiated, and they're tight, and they're disciplined in their 3 minutes, and it's not a bunch of noodling over 10 minutes. And it has a very interesting sensibility that is similar to early Pink Floyd. And this is kind of I think this is a jazz high school band record called Jumbo, Bigger and Better. I guess they're kind of a bunch of young musicians who are like, we can do jazz, we can do rock, we can do both. And there's let's see, they have Theme from an Imaginary Western. So I think that is that a Cream song? I think that's a Jack Bruce written song. And they do Hey Jude. They do Hey Jude, the Beatles' Hey Jude. So that's one of the reasons I have it. But it's very tight jazz rock, and not as much psych. Very, very early jazz rock, not as wanky as some of the 70s jazz rock got to be, but just tight musicianship, tight and jazzy, good drums and percussion, tight jazz rock. And let's see. I think this is a very good Exotica record. It's kind of a later Exotica record because I think it was in like mid to late 60s, which is very late for a lot of those classic Exotica records. It's called Jungle Odyssey, and it has some songs are Elephant Drums, Crocodile River, Monkey Puzzle, Wildebeest Trail, so a lot of like jungle theme to the music. And here is another record that I have. It is also a reissue. So this is kind of a soul psychedelic record, but it's done by a group of kids, and I think they are all so it's a group, and none of them are over the age of 10. So it's kind of weird on that level. It's kind of like the soul psychedelic version of the Shags, if you've ever heard of the Shags. So it's Junior and his Soulettes, and the title is Psychedelic Sounds. If you have an original copy of this, please let me know, because they are ridiculously rare. They are rarer than hen's teeth. In fact, I would just be privileged to stand near an original copy just to look at it. But if you could get me a copy, really, I'd love you. So this is Junior and his Soulettes. There's Rock and Roll Santa, Do Your Funky Thing. I remember Mama Love Tequila. Like, that's like, doesn't that like
get child services worried about you. But they have a song on here called "Mama Love Tequila." It's actually pretty funky, but with a band of kids that's like 10, 9, 7, and 6, do you really want to talk about how your mama loves tequila? There are child services watching. Why would you do that?
Anyway,
oh yeah. The Junior Squad. Baila muchacha. Oh yes, this is a nice Spanish South American record. Very cool. It has a version of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, except they call it Sargento Pimiento. So instead of pepper, they say pimento. So it's an interesting Spanish language translation of Sgt. Pepper. So I guess there's kind of so I guess this is kind of a rock group of some young kids. Are they from Chile or where are they from? Okay, this one says Venezuela. So this one's from Venezuela, but they might not have been from Venezuela because a lot of these bands would circulate all over South America and Latin America. But they seem like they dress up a lot, and that might have been influenced by the Beatles. So they're dressed up like Indians or something like that, like indigenous people. I don't know what they're dressed up as, but it was probably inspired by staring at the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album cover for too long. So, people got some weird ideas back then. And Joravio Kelia. I have no idea if that's pronounced anywhere close to correct. This is a record that was actually made in the United States, but it's all in Lithuanian. So there is let's see, I think there is a Beatles song on this somewhere. Oh yeah, it's "Don't Let Me Down." So it's a really cool the John Lennon song "Don't Let Me Down." I think it's on "Let It Be." I mean, it's kind of a pretty bluesy number for the Beatles. So there's a version of the Beatles "Don't Let Me Down" in Lithuanian on this record. So it's just one of the most killer Beatles covers I own. And let's see what else. Just for Laughs. So this is basically a record that is it's a novelty record. It is just wall-to-wall laughing. It's people laughing from the beginning of the record to the end. It's just sound effects of people laughing. That's what it is. Just what it says on the tin. Yes. All right. And okay. So the last of the J's, Just Water. That's kind of a private press record I have. Just Water. And then there is a Freddie K and the Breeze. So this is kind of it's a little too late to be pure psychedelic. It came out in 1988. So it's kind of like early stoner rock. So it has sitting on the corner, smoking marijuana, old hippies, the kids were tough as nails. So very, very interesting stuff. Freddie K and the Breeze. So kind of a very, very late psychedelic record made by an old hippie who steadfastly refused to give up the old hippie ways. Kabat on the Edge. I think this is a feminist composer. She does a lot of sounds with the glass harmonica, so she does a lot of sounds, coax a lot of these angelic, ethereal sounds from water glasses and things like that. For some reason, side 2 is dedicated to Amnesty International. I'm not exactly sure what her whole trip was, but this is an interesting women's record with some interesting, experimental compositions and stuff on it. And here, Mauricio Kegel. He very interesting classical composer, 20th century classical composer, very experimental. This one's called Exotica. It's not like 50s Exotica. It's like a very elaborate composition he made for very primitive instruments. And as you can see from him wearing face paint on the cover, he's a very weird dude. And, oh yeah, and I guess the staging was also pretty weird, as you can see from as you might be able to see from the back cover. And let's see. Okay, Mel Kaiser, Documentary Sounds. It's a Folkways record. So, but this is probably the better one to get. Science fiction sound effects record. So if you like that 1950s futuristic aesthetic and the all those bloops in outer space kind of sound, Mel Kaiser's science fiction sound effects record. This is one to get. It's on Folkways. You know I love Folkways, so that's good stuff. And a really killer San Francisco area psych band. Unfortunately, they never got the love that more well-known bands like the Grateful Dead did, or Janis Joplin's group did. But KAK, K-A-K. Just killer. I mean, the guitar work on this stuff is killer. I think there was a guy in this group that was also in one of the incarnations of Blue Cheer, so it's like really hard killer rock, but very good guitar work and just one of the best West Coast San Francisco records of the era. And here we got Afroground, Uwele Kalabubu, and the Tribe. So this is kind of an Afro beat exotica record that is just really cooks, and the cover is quite risque. And Kaleidoscope was really good. So this is the U.S. There were at least two bands called Kaleidoscope. Actually, there were three bands called Kaleidoscope in the 1960s that were all psychedelic groups. This is the U.S. band called Kaleidoscope. Actually, their records are the easiest to find, although most psych records are still very difficult to find. But this is A Beacon from Mars. They were I forget if they were based in San Francisco or L.A., but A Beacon from Mars is their second record. It is very good. And I think I have this is their third self-titled album, Kaleidoscope. But I think what you really want is the first one, Kaleidoscope Side Trips. I mean, look at that cover. It's kind of black and white psychedelia on the front cover. These guys were very fusiony and mixed together a lot of Eastern influences, and they were multi-instrumentalists who played a lot of different instruments that most rock bands didn't usually play, but they could very easily integrate them into their music. They have quite unique sound. They also did a very good version of Oh Death, which is a very long time folk music classic. It was Oh Death was done by Camper Van Beethoven. It was also there's a version of Oh Death that is sung in the movie Oh Brother Where Art Thou, but they did a really good version of Oh Death on this record. Some really good like Middle Eastern tinged psych, so like Egyptian Gardens. That's a very Middle Eastern tinged sound to their psychedelia. So they were a little bit like the Devil's Anvil in that instead of focusing mainly on the Indian influences, on psychedelic music. They delved into a lot of Middle Eastern stuff, which was unusual for some of the psychedelic groups of the time. So, and Khalil and Taylor, my plumber doesn't make house calls. So these are basically man-on-the-street interviews with people doing their jobs. And this is a weird, I think, electronic polka record. Nigamal Kultis, Nesta Kale, and his Moog men. So it's polka accordion music with Moog synthesizer, and it's in space. So if you want that combination, if you want space Moog polka, space synthesizer polka, this is the record for you because it's pretty much the only record of space synthesizer polka. But you gotta have one. You gotta have one. And Kangaroo, very excellent country rock tinged psychedelic group. They had an amazing female vocalist named Barbara Keith. So it has that male-female vocal blend that I like from a lot of the psychedelic groups of the era. So Kangaroo, very, very good. They had a country rock tinge to some of their psych songs, so very unique sound. And this is the Kaplan Brothers. So this is the Kaplan Brothers. If you are into collecting private presses, these guys definitely have a reputation. They are one of the most interesting lounge bands you can think of. This one doesn't have as much of a cult reputation, but it's definitely in the same vein. But the one that people really want to track down, the private press record that people want to find, Nightbird by the Kaplan Brothers. This is an original press that I won off eBay many moons ago. It has some very interesting sort of everything but the kitchen sink lounge psychedelic soundscape to it, and I think they cover a little bit of King Crimson on here, which was very unusual for a lounge band to do at the time. And yeah, Epitaph. They do King Crimson's Epitaph on this. And they have some of their own songs. So they were one of those lounge bands that didn't just play the hits, but actually pushed some of their own songs on people. And they were kind of doing their own thing, but they still sounded like a lounge band. But they also sounded psychedelic. And they also sounded like a bit of everything but the kitchen sink. And so this is why these guys are they're very sought after. The records are very sought after. And Karate Moves, the mystical world of karate. Yeah. Yes. So this is a very interesting record, inspired by karate. It's featuring the music of Steve Linegar's Snake Shed. Steve Linegar's Snake Shed. So I think they were maybe a Swedish progressive rock group, and they just got called in and say, hey, guys, we'll pay you if you do a karate record. And so that's what this is. Karate Moves, the mystic world of karate. And anyway, I'm interested in some other karate records. There's a karate evangelist named Mike Crane, Crain. If anybody has that, please let me know. And also in the K's, Boris Karloff. So, Tales of Mystery and Imagination. So this one has some spooky sound effects by Mr. Rama. So, Boris Karloff, he's a scary sounding dude. And then we got some more. Oh my god, I got some more Boris Karloff. Tales of the Frightened, Volume 1. And this is still in the shrink, so very nice. Very nice copy. And Michael Kasberg. Michael Kasberg was a pretty weird guy. He is, I think, a teacher out of North Dakota, and he basically just wrote a lot of songs, and he basically like paid people to sing the songs he wrote for him, and he issued all these albums that he would just sort of distribute himself. So it's basically like your kind of dorkiest, blandest high school teacher, like having this secret career, releasing albums of his weird, off-the-wall poetry. So that's what this is. This is the Kashmir Stage Band, 1974. I got this relatively cheap. I have no idea if it is a legitimate first press or if it was just a bootleg, or it was cheap enough that I took the chance. So, but I still have no real idea if this is. But the Kashmir Stage Band, it's probably the funkiest school band you have ever heard. Yeah, I'm just happy to have a copy. Not sure if it's an original or a reissue or bootleg of some kind. And then the Panatics. Well, Panatics is the name of the album. The band is called the Cats and Jammers. So this is another one of those steel drum records. What is unusual about this is it has one of the most amazing steel drum cover versions you have ever heard. It's a cover version of Gary Newman's Cars on steel drums. Absolutely mind-blowing cover. So probably one of the most amazing steel drum covers ever caught on vinyl. And then and some Kool in the Gang. Oh no, these are the KGs, but it's basically Kool in the Gang. So